The air was thick with leftover music and wine when I walked back into the house, barefoot and tipsy, my silk dress clinging to my curves. My husband was already asleep upstairs, but his best friend Noah was still lounging on our couch, his eyes burning into me in the dim light. I smiled politely, but inside, a tingle ran up my spine as he said something low, something I couldn't quite hear, but felt. That night wasn't supposed to mean anything. Until the next morning, when everything changed, and I realized I'd crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. It all started on a late Saturday afternoon. My husband, Mark, had thrown a small celebration to mark the promotion he'd worked so hard for. The backyard glowed with string lights, laughter bounced off the patio walls, and our closest friends filled the house with energy and champagne. I had spent all day preparing, cleaning, decorating, and slipping into a dress Mark said was a little too distracting for his friends, which only made me want to wear it more. It was navy blue silk with a low-cut back and a teasing slit that reached halfway up my thigh. I felt beautiful that night, in the kind of way I hadn't felt in years. Mark was proud, beaming but busy. He kept disappearing into conversations with his co-workers, barely catching my eyes when I passed him another drink. I didn't mind at first. It was his night. But Noah, his best friend since college, was different. Noah was tall, athletic, with that rugged charm that always felt a little dangerous. He arrived late and alone, but when he saw me, his eyes lingered just a bit too long. "Wow, Emily. Mark's a lucky man," he said with a slight smirk, his gaze flicking down before finding my eyes again. I laughed it off, trying not to let his voice affect me, but I felt the stir of something forbidden. The night wore on. Wine flowed. Music thumped in the background. My dress felt lighter with every step, and my inhibitions thinner. Mark was too busy with his crowd to notice when I laughed too hard at Noah's jokes or when we ended up dancing near each other, heat rising between us. By midnight, the house had emptied except for Noah, who insisted he was too tipsy to drive. Mark, just as drunk, had already stumbled upstairs, barely mumbling goodnight. "You mind if I crash on the couch?" Noah asked, raking his fingers through his messy hair, his tie hanging loose around his neck. "Of course not," I said, forcing a polite smile, though I could feel the tension curling in my stomach. I handed him a blanket and a pillow and was about to retreat to the bedroom when he said, "Emily, you were glowing tonight." I paused. There was a crackle in the silence between us. "Thank you, Noah. Good night." "Night," he said, but the way he looked at me made my heart skip a beat. I went to bed, Mark fast asleep beside me. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the weight of Noah's gaze lingering on my skin. I wasn't sure how long I lay awake before I heard soft footsteps. The floor creaked outside our room. My heart thudded. I pulled the sheets tighter. Then silence. I didn't get out of bed. I didn't dare. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains. I turned to see Mark snoring softly. I got up, fixed my hair, threw on a robe, and padded downstairs to find Noah sipping coffee at the kitchen island, shirtless, looking way too comfortable. "Morning," he said with a crooked smile. "Morning," I replied, surprised at how nervous I suddenly felt. "I hope I didn't wake you last night," he added, his eyes searching mine. "You didn't," I lied. There was a pause. Then he said, "You were in my dreams." I swallowed hard. "Noah." "I didn't do anything," he said quickly. "Just wanted to say it. You should know how insanely gorgeous you are." I should have told him to stop. I should have walked away. But I didn't. Instead, I walked toward him slowly. "This isn't appropriate," I whispered, even as my voice trembled. "No, it's not," he agreed, but he didn't look away. The space between us disappeared. I stopped just short of him, and we stood there, both pretending the moment wasn't crackling like a live wire. I could smell his cologne, faint and masculine, and feel the heat of his bare skin so close to mine. Then, the front door clicked. "Mark." I stepped back instantly, as though scorched. Noah grabbed his shirt, and I turned to see my husband fully dressed, ready to run errands. He smiled at us both, oblivious. "Morning, you two. Thanks for letting Noah crash here, babe." "Of course," I said, forcing my voice to sound normal. But things were far from normal. Later that day, I couldn't stop thinking about the way Noah looked at me. or the way I responded. Over the next few weeks, Noah started showing up more often. At first, it was subtle. He'd drop by when Mark was home, hang out for a beer, play video games. But each time, there was a moment, an accidental brush of his hand on mine, a whispered compliment only I could hear, a look that lingered too long. Then came the day Mark had to travel out of town for work. Just 3 days. Noah texted me that night. "Need anything? I'm around." I stared at the message for too long before replying. "I'm fine. Just bored. Want company?" The answer should have been no. But the loneliness in my bones was louder than my conscience. When Noah arrived, I was barefoot again, in a soft cotton dress that hugged my body. I didn't dress for him. Or maybe I did. We drank wine. Talked about nothing and everything. And then the silence between us turned charged. "I think about you more than I should," he admitted, voice low. "I'm married," I whispered. "I know." He touched my cheek, just once. And I didn't stop him. That night, lines blurred. And the next morning, I stared at my reflection, a mix of guilt, fire, and confusion burning inside me. Mark returned the following evening. I met him with a hug, dinner on the table, a smile that felt too wide. He didn't suspect a thing. But the next weekend, Noah showed up again. And again. The heat between us became impossible to ignore. Until one day, Mark came home early. I was in the kitchen with Noah, too close. Mark's voice startled me from behind. "What's going on here?" Time froze. I stepped back. Noah turned. "We were just talking," I said quickly. Mark looked between us, his eyes narrowing. "You sure?" Noah stood. "I should go." After he left, Mark turned to me, the weight of suspicion hanging heavy in the air. "Emily, has something happened between you two?" "No," I said, too fast. But Mark didn't say anything. He just stared. And I knew from the look in his eyes that things would never be the same. Over the next few days, he grew distant. Quiet. I tried to act normal, tried to bury the guilt, but it clung to me. Until one night, Mark sat me down. "I'm not stupid, Emily. I know something's changed between us." Tears welled in my eyes. "I didn't mean for anything to happen," I said, voice shaking. "But I was lonely, Mark. You've been so distant for so long, and I..." He looked away. "I should have been there more. I got too focused on work." Silence again. Then he said, "Do you love him?" "No," I answered truthfully. "Do you love me?" "Yes." And somehow, he believed me. Or maybe he wanted to. Things got quiet after that. Noah stopped coming around. Mark and I tried to repair what we had. But the secret still lingers between us like a shadow in the corner of every room. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I'd said no that night. But the truth is, I didn't want to.